Hey, what's up everybody? This is Joshua Casper. Welcome to another review. Today we're going to be testing the Abbey Road Studios Brilliance pack. It's a set of 3 plugins, very simple plugins with a lot going on under the hood. They're made by Softube in conjunction with Abbey Road. I guess they got hands-on with the actual boxes that were in Abbey Road Studios. The boxes themselves are right here in this picture. The 3 plugins emulate these 3 boxes here. So as you can see from the interface here, it's quite simple, and this is exactly what the box at the studio looked like. You had 2 controls, and it was meant to allow the mastering engineers to quickly add some sparkle and shine to the mix without having to deal with a lot. So I've got a gain control here, and it's plus or minus 2 dB at a time. So I mean, you can't really dial anything in like that. And then you have 3 different crossover points to choose from. So we can go 2.7K and above, 3.5K and above, and 10K and above. Now the RS127 Rack is the same type of controls. We've got plus or minus 2 dB, gain control, and then the same frequency crossover point options. However, the RS135 only has plus dB, and it's from 8K and above, and you can't even roll things off on this one. So this one's really straightforward. And they each sound differently, just like you would assume that the hardware each sounds differently. And it's good to have the options to go for, because you can't really dial in any controls inside of the hardware or inside of these VSTs. So having 3 different options to choose from, whichever one fits the type of track you're working on best, makes things a lot easier. Now, these plugs are actually quite pricey. They're about $200, I think, for all 3. You can only buy all 3 together. So I'm gonna go through a test here, and as you can see, I've got quite a few different test tracks. Each one of these channels has one of the plugs on it. We're gonna go ahead and A/B them with and without, and then compare them with each other for a bunch of different genres. Now, I don't have any like acoustic rock pre-masters in here, and that's because I don't have any on this computer right now, but I do have like an acoustic reggae one that I think will give you a good idea of how it sounds. Now, the main selling point of these plugs is the fact that you can add a lot to the high end of the spectrum without distortion or without creating any harshness in the tones. And I mean, I put it through the test. I mean, I really went into it and pushed some of these up to 10 dB. And obviously once you get to 10 dB on a pretty well mixed track, you're gonna be getting some distortion. However, I mean, plus 4 is a lot, and without getting any distortion, it sounds really good. So let's just stop the talking and go ahead and listen to some of these. So let's go ahead and listen to how they sound. And remember, we want to pay attention to the higher frequencies. For the rack and the box, the RS127 Rack and Box, I've got it set to 3.5K and above, plus 4 dB. And for the RS135, it's at 8K and above, plus 4 dB. So they're fairly close, but they're not exactly as comparison for these 2 and this 3rd one. So anyway, let's just go ahead and listen. So that's without. And that's with. And you can really hear the difference there. And while you're listening, first of all, you should be using some really good headphones or on studio monitors. But I want you to listen to, there's a guitar, and then there's some percussion, and then there's that rattle. If you listen to those, the difference between with and without, you'll really notice the difference. And what's really, really cool is that those have been boosted inside of a fully mixed track without there being any distortion, or you can't really even tell that there's processing going on. It just sounds better. So without and with. So I think it sounds really good. So now I'm going to go ahead and just bounce between the 3 devices right here on these channels. So I think by far my favorite on all of these examples we're about to hear is the RS127 Box. I think it sounds cleaner, it boosts, it sounds like it's doing more, and I just really like the results with this one over the other two. However, these are going to be different for different genres, different styles, and obviously you can put some of these on just regular channels instead of mixed tracks. So we're just going to keep going here, and I'm going to bounce through some of these other styles and just continue to go through. Just remember that this channel is the box, this is the rack, this is the RS135, and this channel has nothing on it. So just try to remember that while we're going through here. So for that particular one, I think the RS135 actually sounds a little bit better. And you can also see that the plus 4 dB is really making a difference when I turn these on. Well, the plus 4 dB at 8K and above really isn't pushing my limits. Here you can see I'm at, the track by itself is at negative 1.45, while the RS135 is only pushing it, I don't know, like 0.3 dB, while these ones are getting pushed quite a bit. This one's put almost 2 or 3 dB over here on this one. So let's go ahead and check out this dubstep. And let's go ahead to the drum and bass. And let's try some deep small room house. And Melbourne bounce.
Just dance.
And finally, some new disco. So that's pretty sweet. And I think the last thing we can do to really put these to the test is play with some of this dB gain here. Let's put this on the new disco, make sure my track RS127 box is selected, and let's crank it up and see what happens. I'm mean, that's plus 8 dB on everything above 3.5, and there is very little distortion. I mean, the distortion is definitely coming in and it's present, but I mean, we're talking about plus 6 dB. And that sounds really good. That's pretty remarkable if you ask me. Let's check out the RS127 Rack and see if it does the same. I mean, there's no way I'd ever want to go plus 10 dB, but the fact that I can without really crazy distortion and artifacts is just mind-blowing. You really need to sit back and appreciate what's happening right there. You can see that we're getting crazy peak levels over here, but the distortion factor is hardly noticeable, especially when you're in plus 2, plus 4, plus 6. Just hardly can notice. I mean, that's incredible. That's 10K and above at plus 10 dB, and it actually makes it sound a lot better. When you bounce back to the original, it sounds dull. So, I mean, I think I've taken up quite about looking at 15 minutes on my watch right now. So that's quite a lot of time spent with trying to figure out what these are and what they're good for. So my overall view of these is if you are a mixing engineer, get them. $200 for this type of quality to brighten up really any genre of sound very quickly and very easily. Like, you got two knobs, you tweak them, and you're set good to go, and things already sound brighter, cleaner, and more crisp. If you're just a hobbyist, you might not need something like this. I mean, $200 for something you might use every now and then, I don't really think it's worth the money unless you have money to spend. If you're a serious producer, again, I would recommend them. But if you're just a guy who likes to make some music every now and then to post on YouTube, then I'm not sure these are for you. However, I mean, I recommend them if you're any sort of serious music producer, and especially if you're any sort of serious mastering engineer, mixing and mastering engineer, because they just do such an incredible job without you having to worry about 50 million parameters to dial in. Two knobs, in some cases just that one, and they just do a great job. They do exactly what they're marketed to do, and I'm impressed. So anyway, that's my review. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time. Peace.